General Milley, this will be my last time to question you. You mentioned 2 years ago that you wanted to better understand white rage. And so my question is this: did you read this book?
Which one of us is fooled by Matt Gaetz' performance? And yes, that's exactly what it is, performance.
What is White Privilege is the book, and it's actually written by a DOD official, a senior official in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and there are now hundreds of these books in dozens of schools, and I wonder if you guys connect this to your problems with recruiting.
When you hold up a book at a general, a book called White Privilege at a general, about it being in several schools, dozens of schools is what he said, and that being the problem with recruiting, and that being the problem with the military having a recruiting problem. First of all, we all know that civilians do not report to this general. He is not hiring and firing people that are in the DOD. That's not what's going on here. Also, we should pay attention to this idea. Why is Matt Gaetz so worried about white privilege, or a book written about white privilege, that he brings it up to a 4-star general on the Armed Service Committee? Let's think about that. But before we do, let's finish this video.
In the next slide, this is a tweet by one of your employees in charge of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's patently racist. They say that she had to give Karen the business, that she talks about caudacity, presumably of Caucasian people. So I guess,
terrible.
Why does the... well, why is that person
You're not getting
so
an argument from me. That's terrible. It's wrong. She shouldn't be doing that, period.
Should she be fired?
I don't. That's a DOD employee, not U.S. military uniform.
It's simple. We see once again an entire Republican platform that is anti-Black. Anti-woke means you are anti-Black. The entire week, every Republican post that came from Congress people, every video almost that I did this week was about Republican Party being anti-woke. There were an entire country of sleep people, anti-woke, those of us who are fighting for social justice and equity. This is what they're asking their party to stand for and believe that is the most important issue. So much so that you spend time with a general, your last question, as you stated, with a general, to ask him about a post, a tweet about wokeness or anti-white behavior that you assume exists because someone said they're tired of Karens. But here's the real thing. If Matt cared so much about the military, why then is his legislative aide a war criminal from the Afghanistan war? Why is Derek Miller on staff handling military issues? That's right, Derek Miller, a man who sat on top of an Afghan national and said, if you don't tell me the truth, I'm going to kill you, and then shot him in the head. And another National Guard member heard this conversation, saw this action, and reported Derek. And Derek lied and tried to say the Afghan national that he killed, Atta Muhammad, came across a defensive perimeter that his unit set up. This man is in charge of military policy in Matt Gaetz' office. When you start thinking of things like this, when you put pieces together in this manner, it automatically becomes clear why Matt Gaetz' aides are digging up BS about white privilege books in dozens of schools, having a problem with recruitment for the military versus real issues, like the fact that our veterans are one of the leading demographics that's homeless. Like the fact that our veterans don't have enough when they come back from these wars to survive healthily. Matt Gaetz, Republican Party, you are a dastardly group. And I am so glad that I am woke and see right through all your sleepiness.
What they have done to our military and the leadership.
It's a disgrace. Biden's senile to have bisexual people advertising to get into service now. When we fought and put our lives on the line, and now he's having them advertise for our great services.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here. And did you catch that cringeworthy spectacle outside of that Trump rally? Yeah, RSBN's Brian Glenn tried to be a credible reporter, but boy did he miss the mark with his interviewee. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion.
It's a dirty disrespect.
This guy couldn't string together two coherent sentences, yet he was fervently pushing the narrative that President Biden is the one losing his marbles.
Greatest generation fought World War II. They are rolling in their graves of what is happening now.
I mean, talk about this adding insult to injury. This guy was lost in a haze of confusion. Unfortunately, he's not alone. Tim Kennedy, the ex-Army Ranger, going on Fox and Friends weekend to bash transgender individuals serving in our military, was just as misdirected.
There's been a lot of ways in which the Navy is recruited to include trans videos from sailors saying, we want you to serve too. What do you make of the Navy falling so short and shortages across the DoD?
Serving your country should transcend personal identity. And when we're pointing towards a personal identity, whatever that be, we're doing it wrong. You know, looking back to like Triple Nickel, the Tuskegee Airmen, Navajo Windtalkers, we were always the first to bring in with open arms as many as we could that wanted to serve their country, but the operative word was serve. So I think we're really missing the mark on who we're trying to talk to here.
It's like he's stuck in a time warp, pining for the days when the military was all about serve and protect without any pesky notions of inclusivity.
How much do you think the woke thing, the DEI thing, the trans thing has to do with how potential recruits view the Navy or the Army or any service?
You know, them picking specifically a trans group, which is less than 0.1% within the military, you know, like why they're making these strategic decisions blows my mind. You know, 16% of military are women that can now serve at the front line on combat arms, in special operations. Let's target them. You know, but most importantly, like we need warfighters because we are looking at perhaps the scariest enemy in our nation's history.
Kennedy's tirade against transgender troops, coupled with his spouted off hard right politics and COVID disinformation, just adds fuel to the dumpster fire. It's like he's living in an alternate reality, and it's not a pretty sight. So amidst the circus of absurdity, let's raise a toast to the brave men and women of our military. They deserve our unwavering support, except, apparently, if they happen to be gay. It's just awful. Yeah. In other news, it's alarming how some individuals cling to outdated notions of identity and service, completely disregarding the progress made towards inclusivity in our armed forces. Take Kennedy's insistence that serving one's country should transcend personal identity. It's like he's stuck in a bygone era, unable to grasp the evolving landscape of diversity and acceptance. And speaking of diversity, it's disheartening to see the continued pushback against transgender individuals serving in the military, especially when research shows that inclusion can strengthen our armed forces. Yet here we are, with politicians and pundits alike peddling divisive rhetoric instead of embracing progress. But let's not lose hope. Despite the discord and disarray, there are still voices of reason advocating for a more inclusive and equitable military. It's up to us to amplify those voices and continue the fight for a military that reflects the true diversity of our nation. So here's to progress, here's to inclusivity, and here's to a military that welcomes all who are willing to serve.